You are 17 years old, and your father is dead on the floor of a house in Pisa. He was putting on his shoes. That is how it happens, not in battle, not with ceremony, not with any of the gravity that should accompany the death of a man who carried the name Gaius Julius Caesar. He bends to lace his sandal one morning and his heart simply stops. You are not there when it happens. You are in Rome, studying rhetoric under a Greek tutor your family can barely afford, practicing the arrangement of arguments, learning how a sentence can be made to feel like a fist or an open hand depending entirely on where you place the weight. The messenger finds you in the forum. You read the letter once, fold it, and do not weep. You do not weep because you are already thinking about what comes next. You are 17 and your father is dead, and you are now the head of a patrician family whose patrician blood has purchased almost nothing of real value for 2 generations. The Julian name is ancient. The Julian purse is not. You ride back to Pisa, bury your father with the ritual and the masks and the wax effigies of ancestors who achieved more than he did, and then you ride back to Rome, because Rome is where everything happens, and everything is exactly what you intend to acquire. This is your ordinary life before the extraordinary one. You are a young man from a respectable but economically threadbare family in a city that runs entirely on money and connections. You know how to speak. You know how to read people. You know that the aristocracy of Rome is a performance, and that you were born knowing most of the lines. What you don't have yet is leverage. You don't have it yet, but you understand, with the cold and precise clarity that will define every decision you make for the next 50 years, that leverage is not inherited, it is manufactured. Then Sulla comes for you, and your ordinary life ends. Lucius Cornelius Sulla is the most powerful man in Rome when he sends for you. He is dictator, not the way you will one day be dictator, but in the old emergency sense of the word, the constitutional sense. And he is using that power with surgical brutality. He is prescribing enemies, posting names, letting men be killed in the street for the crime of having been on the wrong side, and you, at 18, have made yourself visible in exactly the wrong way. You are married to Cornelia, the daughter of Cinna, the man Sulla destroyed. You are the nephew of Marius, the man Sulla hated most in the world. You are a thread in a web Sulla wants to burn entirely. He sends word, divorce the wife, repudiate the connection, demonstrate loyalty through submission. You sit with this message in the house that barely belongs to you. You think about what compliance costs. You think about what refusal costs. You are 18, and you do not have an army, and you do not have money, and you do not have a single friend powerful enough to protect you from Sulla if Sulla decides you are worth the trouble of killing. You think about Cornelia, who is pregnant, who has done nothing, who is the daughter of a dead man and therefore already carries enough weight. You think about what kind of man makes the calculation Sulla is asking you to make. You refuse. It is not a dramatic refusal. You do not send a defiant letter. You simply do not comply. You stay married. You let the silence be your answer. And when word comes back that Sulla has stripped you of Cornelia's dowry and revoked your priestly appointment, you are designated Flamen Deus, priest of Jupiter, a position of strange, paralyzing ritual restriction that would have made you useless as a soldier or politician. You feel something unclench in your chest. The loss of the priesthood is devastating in one sense and liberating in every other. You are no longer consecrated to powerlessness. You are just a young man in danger. You leave Rome before Sulla can reconsider and decide you're worth a name on a list. You go into the hills of central Italy and you hide, literally hide, bribing your way from one safe house to another, sleeping in farmhouses, moving at night. You have malaria. You shake with it in the darkness, and you keep moving. Sulla's men come close enough that you can hear them sometimes. You give a man 2,000 sesterces. You don't really have to be carried to safety on a litter while the soldiers search the road behind you. Eventually, your family intercedes. The Vestal virgins plead for you. Sulla relents with a famous and unnerving phrase, "Fine, take him, but know that in this Caesar there are many Mariuses." He sees you before you fully see yourself. You go back to Rome, not as a victor, but as a young man who has been measured by the most dangerous person in the world and found noteworthy. That is enough. You spend the next decade building what you lack. You understand that Roman politics is a machine that runs on three fuels: military reputation, legal brilliance, and money. You have none of these in sufficient quantity, so you go about acquiring all three simultaneously. You go east, first to Rhodes, to study rhetoric under Apollonius Molon, the best teacher alive. The ship is taken by pirates near Pharmacusa, and you are held for ransom. They ask for 20 talents. You tell them, with what they interpret as arrogance, and you understand as calibration, that they have undervalued you. They should ask for 50. You spend 38 days as their guest, writing poetry, exercising on the beach, sleeping when you need to sleep. You tell them, pleasantly, that you will return and crucify them all. They find this funny. You are released when the 50 talents arrive. You raise a small fleet, find the pirates at anchor, capture them, and crucify them. But because you remember that they were not entirely unpleasant, you cut their throats first so they don't suffer too long on the crosses. You are merciful in the way that only a man completely in control of a situation can afford to be merciful. This is the version of you that Rome begins to hear about, not the young man hiding from Sulla in the hills. A man who, taken prisoner, concerns himself primarily with the insult to his dignity, and then addresses the insult precisely. You serve in Asia. You earn a military decoration, the civic crown, for saving a soldier's life at the assault on Mytilene. You come back to Rome and begin to practice law, which in Rome is not separate from politics but is politics by another name. You prosecute Dolabella for extortion of provincials. You lose the case, but Rome watches you argue it and understands that you are a speaker of remarkable power, someone who can make a jury feel that the outcome they favor is also the outcome justice demands. Losing a well-argued case against a powerful man is not the same as losing. You begin to borrow money. This is the foundation of the next 20 years. You borrow extraordinary sums from Crassus, from anyone who will extend credit to a man with an ancient name and a demonstrated talent for survival. You understand that in Rome, debt is not weakness when it is strategic. Debt is obligation flowing in both directions. A man who owes you money needs you to remain solvent. A man you owe money to needs you to succeed. You construct a web of financial interdependence that makes your collapse genuinely costly to the people most capable of causing it. You become aedile at 36, and you spend money Rome has never seen a public official spend. Games. Gladiators. 320 pairs of them in polished silver armor. Theatrical events. Public feasts. You are spending borrowed sums so enormous that Crassus has to guarantee your debts personally before you can leave Rome for your next post, because your creditors are afraid that without you in the city they have no collateral. The people of Rome, who do not know or care about balance sheets, remember the games. They remember your name with warmth. This is the transaction you are completing. You are purchasing loyalty at scale, and you are paying for it with money you will only be able to repay if you win, which means that from this point forward, losing is genuinely not an option. You have made survival and success into the same thing. You go to Spain as propraetor, and you see a statue of Alexander the Great in a temple at Gades, and you weep. You are 32, and Alexander had conquered the known world before he died at that age. People remember this moment as a sign of your ambition. But what it actually is arithmetic. You are behind. You understand that you are behind the pace you need to maintain to become what you intend to become, and the emotion that moves through you is not self-pity but urgency. You conduct a campaign against local tribes, earn the right to a triumph, and ride back to Rome with enough plunder to begin retiring some of what you owe. The first triumvirate is your political masterwork, and you construct it not through drama, but through patience and precise understanding of what each man needs. Crassus has money and wants the glory that money cannot buy directly. Pompey has military prestige so enormous that the Senate is afraid to give him what he has legitimately earned: ratification of his eastern settlements, land for his veterans. You bring them together. You give Pompey what the Senate refuses, and you give Crassus the legislation his financial interests require, and in exchange you receive their combined support for your consulship in 59 BCE. 3 men running the Roman Republic between them, while the Republic believes itself to be functioning normally. The Senate hates you for it. A colleague in the consulship obstructs you at every turn. You govern around him as though he is a piece of furniture you have learned to step over. Then Gaul. You maneuver your way into the governorship of Gaul with a term of 5 years and an army. And you understand when you ride north that this is the moment everything until now has been preparation for. Rome needs a military hero of the Pompey scale, or it will never accept a Pompey scale political transformation. You are going to give Rome one. You are going to give Rome itself in the form of new territory, new revenue, new glory. And you are going to do it so dramatically that the question of what you're owed upon return cannot be answered with anything less than everything. The Helvetii are moving. You deny them passage. You use the time their negotiations buy you to assemble a force, then defeat them in the field with the kind of coordinated aggression that becomes your tactical signature. Relentless pressure, no hesitation at the moment of commitment, personal presence at the points where hesitation could undo everything. The Germanic chieftain Ariovistus follows. You defeat him too. Your officers at one point refuse to advance against Germans they believe are invincible, and you tell them, with perfect cold contempt, that you will march with the 10th Legion alone if necessary, and the rest can remain here and explain their cowardice to Rome. They march. 8 years. 8 years of war that is also administration, diplomacy, engineering, logistics, and sustained psychological pressure applied to every surface of Gallic civilization. You bridge the Rhine twice just to demonstrate that it can be done, and that the Germans should understand what they are dealing with. You cross to Britain not because Britain offers obvious strategic value, but because the mystique of crossing the ocean's edge is worth legions of political capital in Rome. You put down the Gallic revolt of Vercingetorix, the most serious threat of your entire campaign, a genuinely unified resistance led by a genuinely capable enemy at Alesia, where you build a siege fortification facing inward toward a trapped army and a second fortification facing outward against a relief force of 250,000, and you hold both simultaneously. It is the most technically demanding and psychologically extreme thing you have ever attempted, and it succeeds, and Gaul is Rome's. You have killed or enslaved over 1 million human beings in 8 years. You know this. You do not dwell on it, but you know it, because every general who is actually good at his work knows precisely what his work has cost. The question you ask yourself, when you ask it at all, is not whether the cost was too high, but whether the alternative was worse. For Rome, for you, for the legions who trusted you to make decisions that kept them alive more often than not. This is the moral arithmetic of men in your position, and it does not resolve queenly, and you do not require it to. Rome requires you to disband your army before returning. Your enemies in the Senate, led by men who have watched you grow too large for the space they allocated you, intend to prosecute you for your conduct in Gaul the moment your immunity expires with your command. Pompey, who was your ally, has drifted toward the Senate's position. He married another woman after your daughter Julia, who genuinely bound you and Pompey together, died in childbirth. The triumvirate is effectively over. The choice before you is not the one people will later pretend it is. It is not glory versus law. It is not ambition versus constitutional order. The choice is, return as a private citizen and be destroyed by men who have been building a legal case for years, or cross the Rubicon. You cross at night. You pause at the bank and you think, as you actually think, about what this moment costs, not just you, but everyone, because civil war is not a scalpel, it is a fire. And you have fought enough wars to know exactly how fire behaves in a city. Then you cross. Alea iacta est. The die is cast. You say this and you mean it in the precise Latin sense of the gambler who has committed his stake. Not recklessly, but finally, with the knowledge that hesitation at this point is merely slow destruction instead of fast action. The Republic does not so much collapse as reveal that it has been hollow for decades. Pompey flees Italy. Town after town opens its gates. Legions defect or surrender. You show mercy everywhere you can afford to show it. And you can afford to show it almost everywhere because you are winning and winning. Men do not need to be cruel in the way that frightened men do. You are rewriting in real time what Roman victory looks like. Not massacre and proscription lists, but clemency, reintegration, the offer of normalcy. Pompey you pursue to Greece, and defeat at Pharsalus with a cavalry feint so elegantly timed that military historians will study it for 2,000 years. He flees to Egypt and is murdered on the beach by men who think they are doing you a favor. When you are shown his head, you weep, and this too is real. He was your ally, your family once, a great man made small by the Senate's manipulation and his own inability to understand what era he was living in. Egypt is complicated. Cleopatra is not a complication you sought, but one you recognize immediately as an asset. An Egypt allied to you rather than to the next Roman general who might challenge you matters. The child she carries is, possibly, yours. The political symbolism of a child who combines your bloodline with a divine pharaonic dynasty is not a symbolism you are indifferent to. You winter in Alexandria and fight a war in the streets and burn the harbor and emerge with Egypt oriented toward Rome and toward you specifically. You return. You celebrate 4 triumphs in a single September: Gaul, Egypt, Pontus, Africa, and the spectacles are staggering in scale. But what you are actually doing is converting military success into political capital in the most legible possible form. The people of Rome watch your soldiers march and feel viscerally that the man at the center of all this enormous motion is the man the city needs. You are named Dictator Perpetual, Dictator in perpetuity, not the constitutional emergency version, not the limited term. Permanently. You know what this word does to Romans who still believe the Republic is more than theatrical memory. You know the risk. You accept it because the alternative is a city that will collapse back into the factional warfare you have spent your entire life navigating. And you believe, genuinely believe, which is the thing your enemies will never credit you with. That stable one-man governance is the only structure strong enough to hold what Rome has become. You plan a campaign against Parthia. You have administrative reforms to implement. You are redesigning the calendar, the Julian calendar, because the Roman calendar has drifted so badly from the solar year that it is functionally useless and you cannot govern accurately without accurate time. You are reorganizing provincial administration, extending citizenship, thinking about the infrastructure of an empire that is at the moment a republic with imperial reach and none of the institutional design that requires. You walk to the Senate on the Ides of March knowing the city is full of rumors. Calpurnia dreamed badly. A soothsayer told you to beware the day. You go anyway because not going is also a choice with consequences, because showing fear to men who feed on the fear of others is more dangerous than whatever is waiting in the chamber, because you have spent 55 years making the calculation that the risk of action is lower than the risk of inaction. And this morning is not the morning to change your method. The senators crowd around you before you reach your chair. They have a petition, they say. It concerns your former lieutenant Publius Cimber, and then Casca's blade is at your neck, and the chamber is full of men who have been waiting for this moment through years of borrowed loyalty and patient hatred. And you are in the place where strategy and preparation finally cannot help you, where the only question is what your face shows in the seconds when there is nothing left to decide. 23 wounds. You pull your toga over your face so that you fall with the dignity you spent a lifetime earning. But the die was cast long ago. Every camp you struck, every river you crossed, every debt you took on with the cold-eyed confidence of a man who intended to win, it is all already in motion. The Republic will not come back. The men who killed you in the name of saving it will be dead within 3 years. Your name will become a title, Kaiser, Tsar, Caesar, that men use to mean absolute power in languages that don't yet exist. The world you made does not stop when you stop. You are done, but the shape you cut through history remains, and it remains exactly as large as you always intended it to be.